networking tips and tricks. And before we go any further, I just want to tell you guys, if you're not familiar with Rich, Rich has been somebody who has been an avid supporter of mine for such a long time. When I was doing my weekly sessions, every single week, I knew I could count that Rich would always be there. And he's been a great friend through all of it. Since then, we've gotten to know each other even better. We have our personal conversations, we check in with each other. So I truly, truly appreciate you offering to take the time to join us this week and share your tips and tricks, of course. So, Rich, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
That's great. And that's what networking is all about, getting to know who people are and stuff like that. And um, that's like one of my passions. And I will be, I get a lot of referrals in because I do a lot of networking. I like to talk to people. I get to know people. And today we're going to talk a little bit about some ways, that we can enhance our businesses and how we can help each other and what we can do in the world of networking.
Yep.
And this is basically, it's an open forum. Please feel free to unmute yourself or chime in or tell us a little bit about some of your experiences, because I don't want this to be all one-sided like the webinar and here it is Friday afternoon and I got to sit and listen to this guy, and we certainly don't want that. We want this to be lively and a good discussion, and share some of our stories and stuff like that.
Agreed. So obviously I've got my great co-host Richard here with me as well. And Richard, we've been having a great time doing this thanks to Fordly being our sponsor for these shows. And we'd be remiss without bringing up the fact, obviously, Scaling New Heights is coming up, everybody. And Jane, I know that Fordly is going to be at Scaling New Heights, and you guys have a special competition prize, something of that nature going on. I would love for you to tell everybody about it, what you're doing at the show, and how they can connect with you, please.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Jane. I'm with Forwardly. I'm the Director of Operations and Marketing, and I will be at Scaling New Heights, I'm leaving next Saturday. So if you're going to be there, make sure to come say hi. We have our booth. It's right on the right-hand side when you walk inside, just a couple of booths in, and we will be doing something special. It's a Forwardly Money Challenge. So Forwardly does instant payments for business in the United States. We try and help you pay bills and get paid as fast as possible. And so because of that, to celebrate, we're going to be doing a really fun money challenge. We're going to have a daily quiz at the booth. Anybody who gets 100% is going to be, it's timed. So if you get 100%, you're going to get a pin, and you might just get on our leaderboard depending on how fast you are. So we're really excited, and there's going to be some fun prizes to whoever gets on the leaderboard. And we'll also do a draw once a day for anybody who just did pretty well on the quiz. So make sure to come check it out. It's going to be fun. We're trying to do something a bit different. So
I guess
you said something about instant payments. Can you tell me a little bit about what instant payments?
So we work with the newest payment technology in the United States, the FedNow, through the Federal Reserve, to help businesses get paid in about 60 seconds or less. So we transfer money super, super quick from bank to bank.
Gotcha. So it's if I want to pay a vendor, I can go through there, pay some super. And if I have a client that needs to pay me, I tell them like, hey, here's where you go. And I get paid, let's say, within a couple of minutes.
Exactly. And we actually also just added credit cards as well. So if you don't want to do bank payments, like we do allow you to accept credit cards. They're a bit slower, but we do also have credit card payments on. And, we're just trying to help people get paid more flexibly and on time and, securely as well. So
it's good for those people that had cash flow issues and need to get paid like right now.
Very good for anybody who has cash flow issues or anybody with recurring payments. We do have an auto pay feature. So, you basically just set up a one-time automatic payment, or even if you already have, pre-authorized debit agreements with your clients, we can also do a mass onboarding. So we're having quite a few people do that these days where, if they have like 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 clients, they just contact us and we'll have like a special meeting and we can get all of those on board at once. So forwardly.com, check us out, or come by the booth. Even better, come by the booth. I want to make friends. Come by the booth.
Jane, we have a Forwardly question in the chat from Karen Orlando asking if you can set up automatic monthly billing and payments.
Yes, so you can set up monthly recurring payments to you. Only the receiver can set up automatic payments. So You can authorize to pay bills monthly, but only if your receiver is requesting that automatic payment from you. You cannot yet set up sending out like automatic bill payments on your own. Yeah, we haven't had that. We haven't had that request yet. Yeah.
It's been, I've been kind of talking about my journey with Fordly, and I now have started using it and being able to accept payments. But it's been nice. It's very easy to use. It pulls in the information wonderfully. So thank you. Go check them out, of course, at the show. It'll definitely be worth it. Now, the reason we're here today is to talk about networking. And there's obviously a lot of different types of networking that can be done, whether it's in person or it's virtual like this, conference, local. I wanted to kind of start off by asking a question of, so Rich, what does networking mean to you?
Interesting, the definition of networking. If you were to go and say to a friend, would you like to go with me to a networking event? They're probably their first thing that they would come to is, oh, I go to this networking event to bring business in for myself. And they also tend to think, all right, they go to this event, and if they come back with 3 or 4 leads, oh, it was a great event. It was the most wonderful thing on there. And if they don't get a lead or something like that, well, maybe I got to think different about it. So networking is a two-way street. I want to find out, I want to obviously tell people what I do. It's important that, but I also want to find out what other people do so that I know in my bank who does what, and if somebody should, have a need or want something, I have a good referral source. I've talked to the people and I know a little bit about them. So it's also just when you're, in the accounting world, there's a trade show coming up called Scaling New Heights, and people are going to go to the trade show and they're going to, walk the floors. And there's a lot of people at any trade show where there's vendors. Make sure you chat with as many vendors as you can. Give them 5 minutes of your time. Get to know who they are, because not only are they going to get to know who you are and what you do, the vendors might be able to refer things to you. And if you're talking with other people at the conference, they also get to know who you are and what you do. So it's a two-way street. I can't people who think they're going to go to a networking event and they're going to get all the leads and it's all about them. It's a two-way street. Got to find out about people, and they need to also find out what you do.
Rich, I love that. It's a great definition for networking, and you're 100% right on them finding out about you and you finding out about them. And one of the most important things in a room full of accountants is, how do you differentiate yourself? You've got to have an elevator pitch, but your standard elevator pitch doesn't always work when everybody in the room does similar work to the work that you do. How do you differentiate yourself? How do you create an elevator pitch that makes sense to people who do very similar things to what you do?
You got to figure out what things that you like, that you do best. Items like, everybody knows I'm the QuickBooks guy. I know that software basically inside and out. I also do some taxes, but I get a lot of my leads because I happen to know a piece of software that everybody else knows that's accounting related. And I kind of at least let people know that. If there's got to be something, everyone, maybe does the same things, but maybe some people cater to a different market. Some people have restaurants, some people have hairdressers. There's always some sort of a niche that you have that you're able to say, this is what makes, what I'm about. So that if somebody has somebody that's, for example, a hairdresser, hey, I've got somebody that does accounting for hairdressers. You might want to give them a call. And I see a lot of here, some head shaking, something. Please feel free to take yourself off mute. Tell us maybe a story or two that you've got. That would be good, so that we all can kind of chat around here. But
So I had a person in our group here that I didn't realize it was a direct message at first, or I would have tried to hide more of my laughter, that sent their elevator pitch, and I won't say who it was.
Okay.
And because it's a joke, but it's hilarious. My elevator pitch is, I sell cocaine and cocaine accessories, but I make most of my money off the accessories. Then I say I'm an accountant who helps small businesses laugh out loud. So obviously a very interesting, crazy one. Thought that was hilarious. What I'd love to hear though, so in the people that are here, have you perfected your elevator pitch? Like what is your actual pitch of what makes you different? Anybody here?
One of the things you need to know is you need to make sure that you're selling the sizzle, not the steak.
Good point.
You want to be,
Point.
you're showing what they need. So something like, I help individuals pay less taxes, gain more profits, and make sure they have the money in the bank when they need it.
Carl, you've got a not quite perfected, but mostly prepared elevator pitch. Can we help?
So what I would say is I help individuals and small businesses tell this. I tell my clients the story their numbers tell me. So
Okay.
through tax prep and tax planning.
Okay.
Excellent.
I like
One
that.
thing about your elevator speech, remember, it's sort of like you're going up in an elevator. You have just a small amount of time to tell people about you. So make sure that you're not going to go stretching it 3-4 minutes. Make it as nice and succinct as possible so that they don't have to spend hours in something that they may not be interested in.
That's a good point. How many people here, again, when we talk about networking events, it could be something in person, such as I used to do BNI. How many people here are still doing in person, besides maybe conferences, in person networking events in comparison to online? I'd love to hear from everybody.
Okay. I'm doing
In
in
person?
person.
Okay. So Rich, actually, in the chat, we have a gentleman named Spike, really cool gentleman I met thanks to Rich a while back, who he put in here, he said, met Rich at a networking event. He definitely made it a purpose to see how he could help first before talking about himself. I think the pitch depends on how you can help the person first and then how you tailor it, which I like that. He does quite a bit where he will actually do in-person networking events. It just shows there's still opportunity for that stuff. So with the ones, those of you that are doing in-person ones, can you share some of your tips and tricks or secrets of how to be successful with it? And then we'll follow with Rich and he can share a couple of his. Jane, you want to share one?
Yeah, I have my favorite opener.
Okay.
It works anywhere. You can use it anywhere, anytime with anyone. You walk up to somebody and you say, "Hi, I'm not sure if I've met you yet."
Ah, that works
That's
extremely.
it. It's super easy. The easiest way, any event. And it's, if you ever hear me say that, it's a tried and true in practice. And if you have met them, you can, laugh about it. Talk about your face blindness, which I'm sure many of us have. And if you haven't met them yet, it's the perfect intro and they can say, "Oh yeah, you're right, we haven't." That's how I met an executive just a couple of weeks ago at a really nice networking event. You're in line with somebody and you're commenting on the salad as you're picking some up and you say, "Hi, actually, I don't think I've met you yet." And you place the tongs back down and have a quick handshake. It's really easy.
Or you could use the tongs to put the salad on their plate for them, even if they didn't ask for it.
You know what? That works too.
Could get
Maybe
on.
check allergies first.
Good idea. Good idea.
Yeah.
Who else?
I'll jump in for a second, and I apologize if my audio is poor here. I'm walking back from a meeting, so I was hoping to be able to be back to my computer in time. But I mean, along those lines, what you just mentioned, if you even just say, "What brought you here tonight?" a lot of times that's enough to be able to just strike up the conversation and figure out how you can begin like the pitch and what way you can start to tailor the conversation in general.
I love that.
I like that too.
I often find, especially in meetings like BNI, where everybody gets up and does a pitch and a presentation. We've all been there where it's like, what the heck did they do? Because they throw so many adjectives, so many clarifying points into their 30 seconds that it just doesn't resonate. I like to leave them with a single word. So for instance, right now, my elevator pitch is about community. And I say, just, that's all you need to remember is community. And they get it. In the years past, when I was selling accounting services, it was about, I help you hate QuickBooks less or love it more. And all you need to remember is QuickBooks. And they do. It's about giving them that prompt of what to remember about me. So Jane, for instance, all you need to remember is payments, fast payments. And people will get that. When you have such a descriptive thing where people can't remember it, it's really difficult to get your message across. So keep it simple is my favorite tip in the world.
Yeah. One of my fellow colleagues is on with us. It's Tom Goshen. He is one of my go-to guys who knows all about where the networking events are and how to handle networking. So Tom, tell us about some of your experiences.
Sure. What's interesting is people remember experiences or situations that their clients are in, and if you can give them kind of a picture of what a person is going through. So I do sell accounting services. So my phrase that pays, or something that makes me think of, have people think of me, is if you hear of a business owner that says something like, tonight I'm going to pour myself a cocktail and do my QuickBooks, have them contact me. So what that is showing, and maybe it's not everybody's hearing, so usually it's a chuckle. What it's showing is they're doing it after hours. They're not enjoying it because they've got the cocktail, and they're kind of complaining about it. So that means they're doing it themselves. So they need to contact me for it. So those kinds of scenarios, stories also sell. When you're talking about what a client situation was in when they, came to you, how you helped them, and now that they're better off, going back to that original scenario, people remember the scenario, so they want to refer you, business. It doesn't happen right away, but it definitely does happen.
Yep.
We're getting some great pitches in the comments as well that if they wish to, they're welcome to come up and tell us themselves, or if they're okay, we can read them out, of course. But before I do some of those, I can, pepper them in here and there. Who else has some tips or tricks that they've found that work well while attending a networking event? One of my, go ahead. I was gonna say one of my favorites, which I should have planned and had ahead of time. When I'm going to a professional event, I like using a tie as an icebreaker. I will spend way too much time before a conference getting together and doing like a Merovingian knot or something that just completely stands out. So when you're walking around and you connect to somebody, they see and they're like, oh, wow, your tie is really cool. They don't know I spent 3.5 hours and then I undid it slowly so I could just loop it back over my head instead every day. But it's a great way to just kind of break the ice and get a conversation started. So there's little things like that you could do as well.
Or if you're in the elevator and you say, hey, how is everybody doing? What are you here for? What's your name? When everybody's like this, doesn't want to talk to anybody because they're in an elevator, right? Nobody talks to anybody in the elevator. This one talks to everybody in the elevator and gets everybody talking. I'm like, I can't believe you just did that.
And it works. You go
start by saying, I guess you're wondering why I gathered you all together here today.
Oh, that's a good one. Don't give him ideas. Yes. He actually knew the Coke guy at one of the conferences. I'm like, how do you know the Coke guy? Goes, Matthew, and gave him a big hug. I'm like, how do you know the Coke guy? And it was like in Canada, wasn't it? In Canada?
He was, yeah. So, okay, another great tip. So Linda and I, when we first started working together some time ago, we showed up to QuickBooks Connect in San Jose in 2018, and we acted like we owned the place. We were, surprise, went running around with video equipment to go record everything and made a whole bunch of noise. And it's how
people thought we were somebody.
Made all these friends and connections. And so we just attacked and just had fun with it. And we invited anybody and everybody to come join us on different things. And that led to then going to QuickBooks Connect in Toronto. Which is where the person was 2 different years that we went there. So it was neat. Find a buddy to go with is a key thing. So Rich, you've got a key about that. If you're going with somebody, what are you supposed to do?
Right. I know an answer to that too. I want to see
what's your answer?
Well, my answer is if you go with more than one person from your firm, you are supposed to split up
Yes.
because that gives you the opportunity for two people now to expand on your business. I've been at a lot of networking events where someone will bring their spouse with them for company and they like hover over them. It's like, no, first thing you want to do is you got this opportunity. You sit at that table and you sit at the other table there. You now got more exposure.
Divide and conquer.
So, Rich, you just said ditch your spouse. Is that what you just said?
I think that is what he said.
Noted.
I have another trick that really helped me back in the days of business cards. So for events where business cards are still being passed out, and it's very subtle, and only you know what it means. But instead of rapidly taking notes on the back of the card, which most of us do, and then you find that waxy card that you can't write on. I have a system. The upper left-hand corner is I'm going to call this person immediately. I want to follow up with them ASAP. The lower right-hand side is I'm going to follow up with them, but not as rapidly. Anything on the left-hand side, I'm literally just folding over the corner, means maybe not. And that way, when I come back home and I've got 50 cards, I don't have to remember much. I just have to know who I want to reach out to immediately, who I want to reach out to soon, and who I really never want to talk to again. And it's an easy way to know that without having to take a lot of notes or do a lot of mental calculations about it.
That's really, really smart. That also, it reminds me of,
I'm good sometimes, Matthew. I'm good.
you're excellent, my friend. I do remember though that my business card at your, when I went to come visit, had the
The right
corner.
hand side was folded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely was. There's different apps where you can do digital cards nowadays, right? So Blink, BLINQ is an example. Richard, I think you have another way that you go about it where you'll do a QR code on, like you save it to the front image of your phone. So somebody can basically just pull up their phone and it's your save screen, grab that and immediately use it to grab your contact information, to which
Oh, I
they then
like
send it
that.
back as well.
Yeah.
We have to teach some people won't know how to do it. So if you show them the first time, that'll be great.
I actually it's not my trick, it's somebody else's that I stole a long time ago. When QR codes really kind of first started out and getting popular, LinkedIn had a little feature where you could save your own QR code.
Right.
And I was doing that on my phone and I'm like, oh, I'll take a screenshot. And then I went, oh, this is perfect wallpaper. And so I've had it on my phone ever since. It works great because it allows them to get the information, get it quickly. The other thing that I will say if you don't want to pay for a subscription to something like Blink or Vice, which is the one that I use, this is a very, very easy way to go about doing that. But one of the other things to do at networking events right now, especially if you have two iPhones, is tap your phones together. Contact information is now pushed across. And here's the secret benefit of that. Most people on their business cards, what phone number do they have? They have the office number that's not getting answered often.
Or none. My latest business cards have no phone number because I do not want unscheduled phone calls.
Bingo. Same with me. But if I really want to connect with you, Carl, I will tap phones. I will have your cell number. You will have mine. I will text you a few days later. Hey, it's Richard from the event. Let's get together for coffee. Let's have a Zoom happy hour, something of that nature. And I'm instantly in a communication channel that 97% of all your texts get answered almost immediately. So I'm not having to go through email and will they not answer, etc. Text is very foolproof. So Matthew, you got something to add there. I see it all over your face.
Well, so I'm thinking, like, we all know there's different aspects of why you should be networking, right? One aspect, the most obvious would be, hey, you're going to hopefully make more money by getting more business to come in. The bigger one in my mind is, I'm looking at it all right now. It's the connections you can make within a community and the things that happen that are unexpected. There's for those here, you can see in the chat, a completely unexpected example of networking and meeting somebody in our industry was Tanya and I knowing each other. We had been on a panel with Notify many, many years ago. She met him first before me, but that's okay. And ended up being, I went to India to go to Analytics, their annual conference, and I had planned on my way back to stop in Amsterdam. Unbeknownst whatsoever, Tanya's husband, Joe, I like to call him Sexy Joe, he's an amazing guy, was out there working, and Linda noticed that Tanya had mentioned she was going to be out there, and we were in Amsterdam at the exact same time, so we got to hang out every single day in Amsterdam, unbeknownst, because of the networking community we had. And it truly, like, we were friends before, but it solidified that friendship. These connections also, for me, ultimately have led to they've helped me rebuild my business. But more important, it's the great friends. And when I have a question or I need help on something with all these people that know so much, all I have to do is reach out and ask them, and they'll help. So there's so much more to it.
It's the in-person stuff, right? You meet somebody, I mean, you meet them here in Zoom. I'm kind of glazed over from Zoom anyway, but now you meet people in person. It's so different. Like, I don't even want to go on a computer at all when I'm at a conference. I really don't. I don't even want to trot my computer around if I don't have to. I want to really have the whole experience and not have to be, I want the real life experience.
I absolutely don't bring a computer anymore at all. I just, I don't find it's helpful in any way, shape, or form. We've got our computers in our hands.
Yeah.
We just don't need it anymore. I will still never forget the first time I met you, Linda. Do you remember?
No.
Goodness. Well, that's not helpful
We've
at
met
all.
before.
It was at Scaling. It was at Scaling.
Oh, I was gonna say Connect.
In the room that Matthew was talking about, you and Matthew had basically taken over it may have been
Oh, the big stage when it was COVID and nobody was around. It was just us.
It was
Three
pre-COVID.
people.
It was pre-COVID.
Oh.
But you were sitting in a group. I walked up, I introduced myself to a couple of people, and we just started talking. And it wasn't that you and I were talking. Apparently I didn't make an impression. No, I'm kidding. But it wasn't that you and I were having a one-on-one conversation. We were sitting in a group, but it was very connective. We all were having an evening, and I got to meet some of the best connections I've ever met there that night. And so it definitely made an impression on me. I love those random chance things. It wasn't a networking event. It was just a chance meeting at a conference.
Mhm.
And we all hung out for a while. My favorite networking tip at Scaling New Heights and at other conferences is to go with the flow.
Yeah.
Everybody's nature in this room is to have a little checklist, right? To be very organized. At 4:15, I'm going to be here. At 4:30, I'm going to be here. At 5:15, I'm going to be here. And sometimes you just gotta step outside that and just let stuff happen around you.
And you
And
meet good people, cool people at the table at lunch.
you
That's
really,
another
You know?
good tip. Invite people who are
Yeah.
walking around, invite them to your table. Hey, sit down here, join us.
I love that.
Yeah, to Rich's point, when you were saying earlier, Rich, about divide and conquer, and then that ties in with this whole point too. I'm a part of Brandon Morris's reseller group, and the only reason that I am is because my husband and I had gone to Connect together. He went one way, I went the other. He was tired, his feet were hurting. He went and sat down at a table. Brandon Morris was sitting across the table, and they just struck up a conversation. Really liked each other as people.
Right.
And then when I got there, I sat down and I was like, "Oh, what do you do?" Brandon had never even told my husband what he did.
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Oh, I need to know more about that. I want to get into," and so now I'm part of, and have been for like 6 years, 7 years.
Tanya, you and I work on projects every single day of every single month together. And you and I met at a networking event. I remember when we first met as well. In fact, the picture is burned into my brain. I was standing with Stacy Kildall. Laura Pilkington was about 10 feet behind us. You walked up, you introduced yourself, took a picture. We have been friends ever since, and we have conducted amazing business together. I think it was 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago.
Yeah, probably about 7.
Yeah. And it was a chance meeting.
Yep.
So there's some really good comments I want to share for those watching live on Facebook, on YouTube, or LinkedIn. Definitely very relevant on here. So one of them, Leslie said, it's so important to not limit yourself to accounting events. If you specialize in a field or an industry, go to their conferences. This is something that there are some people I know that do well. Tanya, you do this. I don't think enough of us do. We don't grab and go into these different places to expand our bubbles. So I think that's super, super amazing. And then Jane, you also had mentioned, always look for someone who looks lost and invite them to sit down.
Remember when we did that? Do you guys remember when we did that at Scaling New Heights that one year? And now we have a good friend that's been our friend
It
forever.
is. It is so important. People are there. They're nervous. They've never been there before. One of my tips is when you walk in, go to somebody you don't know instead of somebody that you know. You will make their day, and you'll also get to know what somebody does and make them feel like, they're part of the crowd. When you're talking with somebody, include somebody who walks up into that conversation some way. You're there for business. You're not really there to networking. Could be more social, and then you let people drop people out because they don't know what you're talking about. So try and include people in your conversations.
Rich, you did an excellent job of this when you created your own QB Pro Advisor group.
Yes.
And communities it's a super, super important thing to me, I believe. Do you mind telling people a little bit about that story of like, how did you start the group up, and what came of that?
An interesting thing. It was all the way back in the early 2000s. And I'm a big QuickBooks guy, and I had gone to a training session. And for those people that know QuickBooks, they had offered the desktop advanced certification if you attended this 2-day seminar. It's like, okay, I can't miss that one. And it's supposed to be taught by Joe Woodard. Like, oh, wow, this is great. It's down in my town. It's great. I could do it. And I go there and I sit next to a girl by the name of Mindy Lupke. We go to this 2-day training session, which unfortunately Joe was sick. So a lady by the name of Eileen Eisen taught it. And at the end of that, a girl by the name of Jody Paydar comes up and says, hey guys, how about we get together and we just talk a little bit about QuickBooks? And one person asked another person. It started out in a small conference room with 4, grew to 8. We met every month. 8 went to like that, that Sweet 16, the other way around. And it got to about 60 members over 2 or 3 years. And we got to know each other people. Some people had strengths in areas that we needed. I did occasionally try and recruit people that they'll say, well, why should I come to your group if you're competition? And I look at them and saying, you're not the right person to be networking, because we do the same things. We can always complement each other. If you run short and you need help with something, there's so many reasons why people who do the same thing that you do, you'd still want to get to know. So it was just, the group just flourished until about COVID, and it obviously didn't flourish anymore, but we're still good friends and know these people to this day. And it was like, it's a lot of work to do a networking group. And the one thing here is, if you're going to do networking and you could give any extra time, there are people on here that run networking groups. Anybody that you can get that will give some extra time. If someone knows how to do some marketing, if someone can do maybe some of the accounting for it, if someone can do some of the setup for it, it really helps to build a group and make it more cohesive. Another thing that I want to mention is, a lot of the times when you're doing networking, it needs to be part of your marketing budget, because there's a lot of groups that you attend to that have annual dues. There's a lot of one that wants to have a special speaker. In order to get good speakers, you sometimes have to compensate them. So to get more out of your networking, it has to be within a budget. You may have to pay for a meal. So keep that in mind when you're doing networking, is there has to be some sort of budget for networking. It's not all the time always free.
I love it. I love it.
I I add to that? Like, be willing to spend your time capital as well when it comes to networking. The more that you can give away of your expertise and your knowledge, the more that people will appreciate and respect that expertise and knowledge. And so it's not just the money capital, but be willing to give some time capital too.
I'm also going to say be free with connecting the dots for other people. If you are talking to a business owner who owns a tire shop and you're also talking to a used car lot, connect them. They should know each other,
Yes.
right? There's no reason why you shouldn't. They will both have a great respect and appreciation for the fact that you even thought of them in that way. Linda, you work with a lot of law firms, and I am sure that you refer them out to each other and to other folks that need lawyers all the time. I got my lawyer because I asked an accountant who works with lawyers. And it's just very important to just remember that it's not just about you and that moment in time. It's about creating connections all across the spectrum of your world.
Speaking of lawyers, I have a client who accidentally sent one of our bookkeepers an email from an incorrect email address because he has 3 different businesses.
Oh,
And the
no.
bookkeeper came to me and was like, "Hey, did you know that so and so does real estate?" And I was like, "Oh no." And she said this to me because she knew my husband and I are also doing some real estate ventures. Long story short, I was able to connect with an amazing real estate attorney because I just happened to find out that a client of ours also does real estate and I want to do real estate, right? Like, just all these different touches that you can have with people. And when I called him and wanted to pick his brain on real estate, having nothing to do with the accounting work that we do for him, he was like, "Oh, let me tell you this and let me tell you that. And here's how he did this." Like, as was said earlier in the chat, people love to talk about themselves and the things that they're doing too. So let them, but you'll also find these great nuggets and things you can use too.
There's one thing that hasn't come up in here yet, and that is, don't forget to throw your personality and your real world into things. You know, it is much easier to connect with somebody when you know something about them, when you can get behind that. I know a hell of a lot about Tanya because I work with her a lot, but it helps the relationship because I know about her kids, I know about her husband, I know what she's doing in life. I know her. That all came about from networking. But even in those moments where you're hi, what do you do? And you're doing your elevator pitch, you can throw in some personal stuff. It's okay. Don't be afraid to be yourself and not your professional self. That professional veneer, it gets tired sometimes.
It's yeah, on that topic. I've had the nickname Spot since I was a freshman in high school. And it's because I have a skin disease called vitiligo where it changes the pigment in your skin and turns it white. More people still to this day know me as Spot. That's why my social tag is Spoticus, all that stuff. When I started to become a bookkeeper, accountant, started work with Parkway, I dropped the nickname because I was afraid it wasn't professional enough. So I started going by Matthew. And it wasn't until many years later, and I finally felt comfortable in my own skin with the things that I do, that I tell people now, yeah, my nickname's Spot. Everybody knows me as Spot. And I'm happy to actively kind of bring Spot back because that is me. It is my personality. And I kind of joke, I think I'm probably 90% personality and 10% intelligence. It's the personality that helps, like, connect to people. But why not have fun with what you're doing and let people see that stuff?
I love it. I'd like to throw another one out there, especially for conferences. I've had this conversation 9 times this week with 9 different clients about first time going to conferences and what should they bring and what should they have in their backpack and all the things. One of the best clients I have ever gotten in my entire career was from I was watching somebody panic, freak out because their phone was down to 3% and they forgot their charger in the room. And I had an extra battery pack and an extra cord in my backpack. And I just handed it to him. Didn't even introduce myself. I said, "You look like you need this." They have been one of my biggest clients.
Sure.
Since the beginning of that, and that was in 2018. So just chance things. So a lot of people are like, I don't know how to network. Okay, great. You know how to people though. Everybody knows how to people. Just be a good human being and treat people like you want to be treated, and often it will come back to you.
I'd like to bring up one point,
Please.
turning my tips and stuff. If you belong to an organization and you have some fancy, what I'm going to call fancy title that I have no clue what you do,
Like
it's
intellectual
going to
handyman.
hinder my being able to help you and recommend people. Something like a global strategic planning officer. I have no idea what some of those titles mean. Can you tell me? Do you do marketing? What do you do so that I can refer business to you? And that's, I've been finding too many weird titles. I just don't know what it means. Am I old-fashioned on that one?
On that note, I think you might be a little old-fashioned. That's my opinion. My fancy title is intellectual handyman. It means something to me, but it actually is very descriptive for what I do. But on that note, it's okay to say to somebody else, how can I help you? What is the best kind of referral for you? You know, I know Tanya. The best kind of referral for Tanya is going to be someone in the construction space. Now, because I've gotten to know her, I also know that that's more or less it's going to be not commercial construction. It's going to be not. I'm getting it backwards, aren't I? It's going to be residential. Well, there you go. I screwed that up.
But there you go.
And there's another good tip. Have humility when you screw up. Just laugh it off, because again, you know how to people, and that's very endearing when you own your mistakes. So thank you for not making me look foolish there, Tanya.
One of the things I'd like to ask, actually, we've got a lot of different people here that are parts of different communities, one way or another. And I'd like to open up the floor and ask anybody who wishes to share any type, whether it's a Facebook group, a community, anything of that nature, take a quick moment to self-promote and share with others where people can find your communities to join into it as much as they wish. So who would like to share something?
I'll say something.
Go for it, Jeff, and then Josh.
I have started a group called QB Chat, and it's got about 169 people, and it's basically anybody I've met in the accounting field. So have a lot of fun with it.
It's a great group.
It's
pretty well curated too.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we always end up having a fun dinner at these different events or some kind of a fun meal, and it's very enjoyable. Josh, I saw you as well. Anybody else who would love to share something? If you want to click the little raise hand, I would appreciate it, and we'll kind of tag on to you guys and let everybody share something.
So I hate promoting things or myself usually, but found a partner, and we're creating a group for accountant and bookkeepers who want to transition from solopreneur to entrepreneur, and hopefully learn some of the mistakes we have the hard way, be able to transition over there much easier if that's what they're looking for. So and the group is going to be called Reconcile to Lead.
Nice.
And you can find it at reconciletolead.com. We're just starting a wait list and getting it together. So
if everybody will put the links to their different groups, I will actually copy and put them into the live stream as well for people watching there. So please feel free to do so. Spike, we'd love to hear from you. And then there's some other people here that are not raising hands, and I'm gonna call you out if you don't do it. So
I want
go for it,
to.
Spike.
Yeah, so I started a group a little over 2 years ago, and Rich is actually a part of it, which is part of the reason why we've gotten to know each other so well. But it's called Level Up Social Club here in Chicago, and so it's more like a general networking. We don't necessarily just hammer down to just accountants. It's any sort of type of business professionals, but we usually get anywhere from like 125 to 175 professionals that come to the events, and A lot of the points that you guys just made though was perfect, of like just being candid of how can I help you out, or where can I introduce you to my network. Just simple things like that go such a far way, and I think that's part of the reason why our group has grown as much as it has in the last couple of years, because people that come to these events obviously are looking to get something, but having that let me pay it forward first and being a genuine, authentic person, it resonates with people so much quicker compared to just what's in it for me, or we kind of call them like the card pushers of here's my card, here's what I do, okay, on to the next one. So it's more like the quality over quantity, and then taking kind of your baby steps of, all right, if I'm going to meet 3 to 8 people at this event, now I got to have them for my next one, but building the network kind of brick by brick per se.
I like it.
I want to little highlight on Spike and his particular group when I've been there. He tends to cater, a lot of his people are the younger generation. And my theory is like, how do you inspire the younger people, the people in their 20s and their 30s, to join in and learn how to network? And Spike's got between 150 to 175 people that come that are generally younger people. So Spike, what is your attraction that brings the younger people in?
I think part of it, what we do well, is just the social media aspect of it. So we try to give people talking points, because a lot of like the hardest part in general is that first initial conversation, and almost like the scare factor of like, all right, these networking events are intimidating. So we do different things where we like include like a podcast during it, where like we'll interview guests. We do like a lot of social media clips of like trying to promote our members, things along those lines, where if you put people into an atmosphere that they have something to already go into and discuss, compared to just, all right, let me throw myself into the wolves per se. I think that's what's helped resonate well with our group, and then that's helped it grow. And then just even with that being said, I mean, how do you connect in between the events, right? And we had some good conversations of like the top left hand corner, the bottom right, and so forth. But as you can see, like different clips of these people and seeing what like the atmosphere and the vibe and the energy is of the events, I think that's a good draw to help continue to promote yourself, your brand, your business, and then just staying top of mind to other people compared to just telling them exactly what you do.
Love it. Okay, so Tanya, I'm calling on you. You've got your construction junction, right? Which is part of what?
Roundtable Labs, one of my favorite places to hang out.
Okay.
So, yeah, for construction accounting, you know, if you have a focus in construction accounting, we're going to talk higher level things like how are we doing labor burdens? How are we doing WIPs? What are apps that are specific to the construction niche? So yeah, anything that you're trying to learn around how to best serve accounting in the construction space, the place to be.
And we had Carl was mentioning, as well as a couple other members here, are part of Tax Twitter, right? So who wants to talk about what that's about? I'm not a Twitter person, so I can't.
Yeah, I can talk about tax Twitter all day.
Okay.
It's a loosely defined group of people who use the hashtag tax Twitter. It is a very fun playground. It's also a very informative playground. It has an amazing amount of viewpoints and differing opinions, and it's real and sometimes gritty. But this year they are doing the second annual Tax Twitter Retreat, renamed Tax Retreat. And you can find out more info about that at taxretreat.info.
Nice. Linda, you've got your group, right?
Yep, the Accountants Law Lab, and it's to help anybody who maybe has one attorney client or multiple, doesn't know where to go with it, maybe wants to go and specialize into that field, or maybe just needs help with the one particular client. We actually today we had the Law Lab and we discussed the future of accounting and AI and how it's going to shift and change and how to stay relevant. Don't be afraid of it. It was actually a really good topic, and hearing how everybody in the group, we have every Friday, we get about 20 to 23 people that show up out of the group. It's a small group. It's only probably 50. I have to count it. It's probably 50-ish. And half of them show up every week, which is really really great. And a lot of them are talking now, which is great. They don't just all sit with their camera off. A lot of them come on with their camera, they talk, and we kind of get them to talk about what are they using. For example, what are they using AI for? Where have they seen it? How are they using it? How are they implementing it? We kind of learn from each other. It's fun.
Interesting. When you say that, Linda, people for doing networking need to make some sort of commitment. You can't just go one time.
Yeah.
You have to at least give yourself, pick a group and at least be there for a year and be pretty reasonable. If they meet weekly, then show up 3 out of the 4 times. Commitment also helps you get.
So
be a good
true. I mean,
networker.
every time Seth's meeting pops up on my calendar, my heart cries a little bit because I don't ever seem to have time to go to it. And when I do go, I'm like, oh, this group, why am I going to? Because I learned so much.
I put that one
I
in the
do
chat.
watch them. Yeah, I just lose at 97 and up was a phenomenal group.
And
So.
sometimes for the groups, if you want, a lot of people have banks that offer after-hour events.
Yeah.
Those are usually a good spot to find things. Chase has offered one. I've got 2 people here online that I've met from the Chase networking events that I'm able to network with. Also, those are usually offer alcohol, and they offer a no charge. They're just trying to get people just kind of get to know one another.
Even mocktails, right?
Yep. Richard, you talked about BNI. That's another good resource for a group. Another one I know is Latip. That's also nationwide. Latip is kind of interesting. They are a weekly one, and they expect you to be able to bring at least one lead in to one member each meeting. And if you don't, you have to put $1 into the pot. And at the end of the day, what's ever left in the pot, they donate to charity.
I don't like things that have a requirement.
Me either.
Then the referrals are forced and they're not as good. I always prefer so provisors, not pro advisors. Provisors is a great alternative to BNI. While I was in BNI for many years, I don't like the forced nature of
That is pretty forced. Yep.
I prefer provisors because it is a organic group of it is a referral network, but you're not required to bring anything to the table. As a result, every pro advisor that I know that's in provisors, they see massive gains in business because it's real. You're getting to know these people. You're only referring quality referrals, and you're getting quality referrals. So I'm much more quality over quantity.
I agree. I definitely agree. It helps to get a qualified lead. I think Matt and you and I were kind of talking about that too. Getting leads that are qualified.
It's one of the most important parts, making sure that you need to be able to tell others what is truly a qualified lead for you. And honestly, I think a lot of people don't always know how to define that or share that to other people, because you want to make sure, like, it doesn't help any of us if your cheapest, the cheapest client that is super happy because they've been grandfathered in and you're losing your rear on them is your best referral source and sending you 5 new people every month. You're like, woohoo, let me change my phone number. But if you've got somebody that's like sending you qualified people and they understand the type of work or things you want to do is super, super important. So.
Yeah, I'll echo that, Matthew. I had one client, I wouldn't say they were at my market rate fees for that time. My rates have since increased, but they sent me 2 referrals who were just terrible on follow-up, follow-through, ghosting. So I ended up telling that client, I'm not taking new clients anymore. Like I just realized I don't want the referrals that will come from this client, not even because their fees are too low, but because their network is not the network that I want to tap for growth in my practice.
I'm also going to add to this, Carl, one very quick thing, that when you give a referral, don't just hand somebody a name and a number and say, call them. Do an introduction. Make the phone call. Say, I want to connect you to. There's a reason that you need to know each other, and here's why. And you don't have to keep it sterile and email. You can do it over the phone, but a warm introduction closes a deal many more times than not. Cold referrals are they're hard to work. Hi, so and so said I should call you. It's a little awkward, but so I always encourage the warm referral.
Loom video. It's one of my favorite little hacks to use. I hate writing emails forever and ever. It's great. You pull up both persons' websites, right? And you do, hi, Linda. I'd like to introduce you to Rich. Rich, I'd like to introduce you to Linda. Rich, Linda's looking for an amazing person who knows everything about QuickBooks. And I said, you're the best person for it, right? And you do that little quick thing, send it over. You do then in the email, you still provide the contact information inside of it and say, here's a quick video intro for you folks. Happy to help connect any way I can from there. And I love it. And every time I've done it, everybody's like, this is such a cool way to make an introduction.
I haven't done that. I like that idea a lot.
It's unexpected, right?
Yeah. I like video. I'm lazy. I don't like to type stuff. So.
No, but it's different. So you're standing out in a crowd. It's the same thing. We were talking about this with Catherine Burnett, and she was saying she had some interns come in and they all interviewed, and she said nobody followed up. She goes, what happened to the note? And I said, nobody writes the note. How important would it be if somebody hand wrote a thank you note for taking the time? It's a paid internship too. And she said, if they had just taken that time to send it, they would have got the job right away. It would have been that person's job. But she said it was just the weirdest thing because she had a lot of young kids and none of them wrote thank you or I really want this job. Nothing.
They're not trained to do that anymore. It was ingrained into our generation to do that, and it's a very different world now. I will say that one of the other things that I do when I do an email introduction is I do two separate sections. So and so meet so and so.
Yeah.
And I always make sure to include their LinkedIn so they can see a professional thing. I highlight a professional thing and something personal about them. And then I do the other paragraph the same way for the other person so that they have a reference point and they know something about the human. Like this guy is, the biggest cheerleader for every Boston sports team ever. So trying to give them something to connect on is something I think that's very important when you're doing an intro.
I think, Rich, you were the one who taught me this. Providing people, when we're talking about how giving people, what's a qualified lead, also providing them an appropriate intro little paragraph, like you're saying, give that to the person to make it easier for them to do an intro. So you don't have to necessarily be the one that comes up with it all the time.
Right.
It's a neat little trick. So, so always wish to be respectful of everybody's time. I know that it's a Friday. For those on the East Coast, thanks for joining us, at this time. I want to open up before we get ready to close down for this week to anybody else, last tips, tricks, suggestions, or shout outs you'd like to give. Anybody else have something they'd love to add on real quick?
I would like to make sure that we say thank you to Forwardly for sponsoring Blueprints for Business. Again, for those of you that are going to Scaling New Heights, encourage them to go. And let's start out right. Connect with Jane Ingram, connect with Eleanor Kwan. LinkedIn is your friend there. It's a great way to do a nice connection and get to know somebody. And Jane, don't start off the LinkedIn conversation with a sales pitch, because that's also one of the worst things that we all do in networking. Get to know them and offer any help or advice or anything that you guys can help each other with. Jane, expect a slew of LinkedIn people.
Well, usually I forget even to bring up instant payments because I'm so interested in just hearing what other people do. You know me, you're always having to remind me, Jane.
Oh, and that was not directed at you. That was more of a generalized statement. Because there's nothing worse than not connected with LinkedIn. There's an automation that's like, hi, would you like to offshore? No, I just met you. So, all right.
Well, thank you again. I appreciate everybody joining us. Rich, thank you so much for your sharing your wisdom this month and bringing so many wonderful faces to join us. We truly hope each and every one of you will join us again next. Actually, our next one will be on the 28th, and it's going to be focused specifically on working with family, the good, the bad, the ugly. And we have Linda Arsani, as well as her business partner, Sarah Prevost, will be joining us as our guest hosts that week. I think it's going to be, I know it's going to be a phenomenal conversation just like this. So we would love to see everybody come back again the next week and keep building this. This has been phenomenal.
Right. I want to give one shout out to one of the guys I've mentored here, Andy, who's on here. This is his first time. He's a top 100 QuickBooks Pro
Congratulations.
advisor, and he just got it for the first time. And we're real
Oh,
proud of
yay,
him.
that's nice.
Real proud for him.
Nice.
What he's
So I
accomplished.
would like to do a shout out back at you, right back at you, Rich, because quite honestly, my firm would not be where it is today without you. You have really been an amazing mentor to me, and I am forever grateful to be able to meet you. And we need to grab lunch soon. So let's make that happen.
Yep.
You've changed a
Thank
lot
you
of
so
lives,
much.
my friend. Good job.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
On that note, thank you guys for attending. And as always, here's wishing you all a very successful week. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.